Good evening and welcome to the Coon Rapids City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. If you could please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Griscoviac.
Here.
Councilmember Ray Rauer.
Here.
Councilmember Demmer.
Here.
Councilmember Geisler.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Carlson.
Here.
Mayor Cook.
Here. Thank you. First thing is to adopt this evening's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Carlson to adopt the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. And we are right up to item 1, swearing in a new police officer, Chief Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as I think everybody knows, it's our tradition to do this. In this case, it's a single officer, which is a bit new for me. We've had larger groups in the past, and we're hoping that the pace of hiring can slow down a little bit, that we enjoy some stability in the police department. That said, as you'll hear in a little bit, though, is that we're still getting great candidates, and we have great new young officers that are working for this agency. So I just tell you the short version of events, there's a bright future for our police department. So, as police chief, I always like to take a few minutes then to introduce our newest police officer on his graduation from our field training program. Of course, it's important that we do this so that the Coon Rapids residents get to meet their officers and know a little bit about who they are, because the relationship between officers and our citizens is important for creating that foundation for a sense of security for our city. So a little bit about Tyler, my newest officer, Tyler Soini. Tyler grew up in Evergrove Heights, Minnesota, and graduated from Simley High School. While in high school, Tyler was an athlete and captain of his football team. After high school, he attended Minnesota State University Mankato, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Law Enforcement and minored in Sociology. While at college, he was also part of a jiu-jitsu club, which has been a recurring theme. I know you've heard that several different times. And frankly, it's becoming jiu-jitsu, or that relationship between jiu-jitsu and our responding to resistance training, is a perfect merger of how to safely take people into custody, especially those who aren't interested in being taken into custody. To phrase it nicely, yeah. He attended Hibbing Community College, where he successfully completed the skills program there. Tyler has held a variety of jobs in his life, to include many in private sector service, again, which sort of is we think is an important foundation for the man that he's become. Among those jobs, he was a security supervisor at River Hills Mall. He worked for Gertens, also worked in a restaurant. He was an armed guard with Rochester Armored Car Courier, and later joined Allina Health as a security officer at United Hospital in St. Paul. Incidentally, he wrote of himself that it was during his time at that hospital in dealing with people experiencing mental health crises that that fueled his desire to be a police officer. Again, another common theme that the mindset of service, especially people in need, is a common one for our officers here in Coon Rapids. Tyler was subsequently, once he understood this was his passion, he was hired and worked as a correctional officer for the Ramsey County Sheriff's Office, where his supervisors described him as an exceptional correctional officer and a well-liked person by his peers and his supervisors. So we are very happy to have Tyler become a member of our department. Incidentally, he is a Coon Rapids resident, him and his family. Since the time he's been hired, he's been trained and evaluated on a daily basis, pushed to excel at meeting the needs of Coon Rapids. Our training program is designed to be an extremely stressful process. I'm sure he would concur. To be certain we've hired the right people that are ready to perform this vital job the Coon Rapids way, as we call it, which leads us to where we are now. So Tyler, tonight you're officially graduating from our field training program. Symbolically removed your trainee badge, and tonight you're going to be pinned with what is your permanent badge, identifying you as officer number 179. Two things I always say about this badge. First, the badge represents the faith that I and everybody in the back room, or frankly everybody in this room, has in you to perform the job of a police officer. It's a difficult job on the best days. Second, and more importantly, the one thing I want you to never forget is it's the badge that belongs to the citizens, and they're entrusting it to you. So treat it as that special item that you're receiving from them, and remember what it symbolizes. Don't forget it. You become a member of a proud organization of professionals, and I want you to know that everyone here in this room is committed to helping you succeed and have a long career for our city. So with that, Mr. Mayor, now is the time for the badge pinning. So we've gone through the training for the pinning, so I'm going to ask Tyler to come to the center here. His wife Kelsey is going to be doing the badge pinning for him. So Kelsey, I will hand you the badge.
Thank you. And it's Sweeney? Sweeney, okay. There was no phonetic helps on it when I thought, I'm going to wait and hear how the chief pronounces it. All right, if you would raise your right hand, please. I'm going to break this into small words because it just gets tough otherwise. All right. I, Tyler Sweeney,
I, Tyler Soini,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and discharge faithfully
and discharge faithfully
the duties of a police officer
the duties of a police officer
for the city of Coon Rapids,
for the city of Coon Rapids,
in the county of Anoka,
in the county of Anoka,
and the state of Minnesota,
in the state of Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
That is true.
And as is tradition, Mr. Mayor, everybody gets up.
All right, that was fun. That was always great. All right, well, we are on to item 2, which will not be nearly as fun as item 1. Approve the minutes of the September 7th, 2021 meeting.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
Move to approve the minutes of the September 7th, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Griskoviac. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Geisler?
I think we should make Wade do all the motions tonight.
I was starting to feel like
Second.
that was how it was going to go.
Hey, you said 9 o'clock.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We have 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first is item 3 on our agenda this evening, declaring the official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from the proceeds of bonds to be issued by the city. Boy, this is like really into the weeds, isn't it? Yeah, so we're just going to say the joint powers agreement with Anoka County for construction of the railroad grade separation project on Foley was approved by the council on October 7th. The county estimates the total project cost to be $23,110,000. Additionally, let's see, and the city will be responsible for approximately $1,963,117. Additionally, $535,466 is anticipated to be reimbursed through assessments. The attached resolution identified that the city may reimburse up to $1,200,000 of its acquisition expenditures from a future tax-exempt bond anticipated to be issued later this year. So we're looking to authorize Resolution 21-92, declaring the official intent to reimburse certain expenditures from the proceeds of bonds to be issued by the city. The next item on our agenda, which is item 4 this evening, is to approve final payment to Forest Lake Contracting for Project 19-28, Northdale Boulevard traffic signal and intersection improvements. And no final payment is due to the contractor because of the adjustments that were paid on previous progress payments. The actual final project costs were more than the contract amount due to quantity adjustments and changes during construction work, and the contract required the intersection improvement to be completed in fall of 2020, which took place. Signal installation and final restoration per the contract was required February and May of 2021, which also took place. So we're approving the final payment to Forest Lake Contracting for Project 19-28. So it's $11,275.86. Are we paying them or are they paying us?
Mayor, Council, Fran might be able to describe that better than I, but essentially, we had already paid them the full amount. The total project was about $11,000 over what had initially been anticipated, but in the end, we're sort of closing out the project at zero, and that's what this action would complete. Fran.
Okay, so the amount due is zero.
Yes.
Okay, the last line is the amount over the final contract, and I thought, well, how did we resolve that then?
Yeah.
Okay, so, if there's a payment, we're going to approve that.
Yes.
You know, to Forest Lake Contracting, Project 1928. The final item on the consent agenda, which is item 5 on this evening's agenda, is to adopt Resolution 21-97, accepting the DWI grant from the state of Minnesota. In 2020, the city of Coon Rapids was awarded a grant by the Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety to fund a full-time officer to enforce DWI laws. The grant was authorized and funded for up to 1 fiscal year, but extensions are possible. The grant is funded by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Federal guidelines require the grant money to be spent on projects to reduce DWI incidents. Because of this, the officer can only be funded for the enforcement of laws prohibiting driving while impaired. If the officer is called to or responds to an incident other than an alcohol-related driving offense, the time spent on non-DWI-related enforcement exceeding 15 successive minutes must be paid for by the agency. The officer works peak nights and times when drinking and driving occurs, and progress reports will be required to be made to the OTS. Recently, the OTS, which is that Office of Traffic Safety, notified Coon Rapids that they have approved grant funding for the position from October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022 to a maximum of $124,962.76 for salary, benefits, and DWI conference registration fees. The 2021 federal fiscal year ends September 30th, 2022, and the Coon Rapids Police Department has developed a work plan and budget approved by the OTS. The award covers a full-time sworn officer's salary and fringe benefits. The squad car operating costs, uniforms, and weapons are not covered by the grant. Accepting the grant required the authorized strength of the police department to be raised by 1 officer. Once the grant funds are discontinued, the authorized strength of the department will be reduced by 1. Council has asked, so we're looking to adopt a resolution to accept the grant through 2022. So we're looking to approve Resolution 21-97, authorizing the 2021 agreement with the Minnesota Office of Traffic Safety, accepting a grant to fund a full-time officer through September 30th, 2022. That is our consent agenda.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Demmer.
move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. The next item is item 6, which is to consider Resolution 21-96, approving modifications to Housing and Redevelopment Project Number 1 and TIF plans for several districts. I would assume, and this is going to require a public hearing, but that's after, I'll bet you Grant tells us about it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to summarize this item. So tonight's action is to expand the city's project area to be coterminous, I guess is the technical term, with the city's boundary. Right now, our current project area for redevelopment project area, housing and redevelopment project area 1 covers about half the city. So the project area is what defines the area where the city can create, for example, tax increment financing districts where we can use pooled tax increment. We do have some pooled tax increment from some older districts, so that gives us flexibility to spend those dollars within the project area. Otherwise, we are subject to the limitation on how much you can actually spend outside of a district. The other thing that it does is it also provides justification for some of the HRA actions. Most recently, as you recall, the HRA acquired a property in conjunction with the Highway 610 project. So anything that we can do that sort of physically establishes the boundary where the HRA can use its resources, that helps. As well as better justification for some of the other things that we do. For example, the Homes for Generation program, Front Door, those are all HRA funded. Well, some of those are HRA funded programs, and so it's helpful if we have that project area that's expanded. It is largely housekeeping. These are recommendations that we didn't come up with on our own. We do work with public finance advisors, Ellers, Kennedy and Graven, which is a law firm that does redevelopment work for the city. And so they have suggested that we take this action this evening to address the points that I mentioned earlier. I want to also emphasize that there are no budgetary implications, so this is completely outside of the city's general fund. Doesn't affect the TIF budgets for the city. It doesn't increase the amount of tax increment that we're collecting. It just gives us the flexibility to use those resources. And there's two documents that are impacted by this. So one is the project area plan. That's kind of the governing document, which has a map. And so that's one map that's going to be modified as part of this action. And then each of the existing tax increment financing districts, which we have, and there are 5 active districts, those also have project area maps that need to be modified as well. So that's the second part of it. So as you mentioned, Mayor, the action tonight is to conduct a public hearing and then consider the resolution once you've closed that hearing. I will also say, just in conclusion, that the Planning Commission did consider this item. They are part of the process of modifying tax increment plans. By statute, they need to make findings that these kinds of modifications are consistent with the comp plan. So they did that last week. They approved separate resolutions. And then, as you're aware, following the council meeting tonight, there'll be companion actions by both the HRA and the EDA, which are involved in our tax increment financing program as well. So I am available for any questions that the council might have.
Councilmember Demmer?
So I'm just sort of looking for why this hasn't already been done or why someone wouldn't do it. I mean, you're basically just saying the whole city is a potential for these redevelopment activities. What's the downside?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, Councilmember Demmer. So really, I think, frankly, this could have been done previously. I think in part, a lot of the early activity that we had with our tax increment program was in the 80s and 90s. It really wasn't until probably in the last 5 years that we created districts. So when sort of the origin of our redevelopment program was created, I mean, large swaths of the city were undeveloped or recently developed, and so there really wasn't a development need. I think now, with the passage of time, we recognize that there are areas of the community that may need assistance. Like I said earlier, it doesn't compel us to create districts, but it gives us the flexibility to do that if we want to. And the other piece of it is really, I think, more relevant, which is the ability to use those pooled TIF resources. It gives us flexibility to use them throughout the community.
I think my only disappointment was he couldn't work coterminous
I know,
into the,
right?
into the resolution. Yeah.
You could change it. I can fix that.
I had to look that word up. I thought, I've never heard that word before. All right, any other questions of Mr. Fernelius before I open the public hearing? All right. Then in the case of Resolution 2196, approving modifications to housing and redevelopment TIF plans for several districts, I'll open the public hearing. Anybody here to address council for the modifications to the TIF plans? You sure? It's a good time to jump on it here. All right, well, then if nobody wants to, then we'll close the public hearing and reserve comments to council. Councilmember Demmer.
Well, I'd practice saying coterminous just in case, so I think it's I move to approve Resolution 21-96, approving modifications to the Housing and Redevelopment Plan for Housing and Redevelopment Project Number 1 and the tax increment financing plans for tax increment financing districts 1-31, 1-32, 1-33, 3-1, and 6-1.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Ray Rower. Discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I guess I'm not convinced that we need to do this. I think the project areas were defined a long time ago and they've served us well. First question I might have is, are there any TIF projects, potential, that are in your mind right now that would be potentially impacted by expanding this project area?
Councilmember Griscoviac, I mean, not at the present time, in terms of creating a tax increment district, but, you know, there's always the possibility, for example, of using, some of those pooled resources for infrastructure projects. I'm thinking of some of the more recent conversations we've had, up at Riverdale and some other areas of the city where it would be nice to have the flexibility if an infrastructure project, for example, becomes available, we potentially have a resource to help pay for that. So it just gives us that flexibility. We don't have, you know, immediate plans to create additional districts, but I'd say really the primary driver of this is the ability to use those pooled resources community-wide.
And I guess I interpreted the question was, would this preclude us from setting up any new TIF districts? Is that what it was?
Oh, no, that wasn't the question.
No, okay, all right,
No,
okay
no.
then.
No, I was just wondering if there was any TIF districts kind of in the works here that this is gonna outline, and it doesn't sound like there is right now.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Geisler?
Yeah, for me, I like the concept of, you know, having the flexibility, you know, with the city and to use those pooled TIF dollars where they might be needed, because, you know, it doesn't, in my mind, make sense to try and create a little TIF district for one little project that we could use those funds for, but we don't have the time or ability to create that district, so we can't use them. And so they just sit there without having our ability to help other areas of the community. I thought it was interesting also when we start looking at our Homes for Generations and our front door programs and other kinds of potential projects that we could do, we want those to be citywide. And if the need to have this housing and redevelopment zone citywide, that means we can help everybody in the city versus just the people who are in potentially the half that happen to be in it today. So for me, it makes more sense, it gives us flexibility, and it helps us move things forward. There's a lot of our city that's going to be moving towards redevelopment as we go in the next 5-10 years, and having that flexibility is important.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Griscoviac?
I just got a clarification from Councilmember Geisler there. Homes for Generations, there isn't anywhere in the city that is out of bounds for that program today, is there?
Councilmember Griscoviac, that's correct. So Homes for Generation is a program that is citywide. I did misspeak earlier about Front Door. That's a separate program that's largely funded through the former Home Improvement Foundation. But other HRA programs that we might create in the future, it would give us the ability to put that under the umbrella of the HRA. And part of that justification is that HRA resources could be used citywide.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? We have a motion and a second. Is there, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. One nay.
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 Nay, that's what I meant.
Councilmember Griscoviac. All right, we are up to item 7, consider a water emergency. Mr. Stemwedel.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Himmer is not here tonight, so I can take the first crack at this. This is a continuation, a request for continuation of the water emergency that's been ongoing since June of this year. I did have some discussions with Mark Hansen, and he checked in with our water utility department about pumping in the last several weeks. We have noticed some improvement in terms of, water levels in it since August, but still September of this year relative to, say, September of last year, we're still significantly below average. So we think it's prudent then to continue on the water emergency, in part for that reason, and another part is we're still under the DNR drought management plan, which triggers actions within our water management plan. And we are still finishing up, hopefully in the next several weeks, the work on the East Treatment Plant, and once that's online, we'll have a lot more capacity in the system, and hopefully we can discontinue this, at least for now.
Sounds good. Whoever does this still has to make a motion, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Councilmember Demmer.
see where this is going. Move to continue the watering restriction measures of the water emergency.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Griscoviac?
Just this, I probably know the answer to this, but I'm just going to ask anyway. In the falls, sometimes where people are seeding for new lawns, and I know a lot of the lawns got burned up over the summer, so they're probably going to be doing that over the next month or so, or is there okay to sprinkle on those new lawns, or what's the policy there?
Isn't there an exception for new lawns or seeds?
I thought there was, but.
There is for that. If you put down new sod, you can water that sod. If someone's
question
got the
comes up a
particulars, go
lot,
ahead.
Mr. Hansen?
Councilmember Griscoviac, on our street reconstruction projects, and we do allow an exception for that.
Okay. Seeding as well, then, overseeding
Yes,
a lawn?
yep.
Okay. I don't want to be out of compliance.
I wasn't planning on overseeding, but I want to water, so. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We're on to item 8 under new business. I'm sorry, under 8 is our last item under old business. Consider planning case 21-34, consider adoption of ordinance 2254, amending the solar ordinance, and ordinance 2255, amending the definitions ordinance. Does anybody need any more updating on this, or have we covered it between the last meeting and the workshop? Councilmember Demmer?
I was actually
Oh.
thinking that we had to say something because something changed. I was,
Well,
Mr. Brody?
Mr. Fernandez does note in his memo that we changed the 60 days to 180 days, and we did add some additional language about when oriented at maximum tilt for solar carports and non-residential, per Councilmember Geisler's suggestion. So we did make a couple of changes to the ordinance since it's been introduced, but those changes aren't significant enough to require reintroduction. So we're able to proceed tonight with adoption if that's the council's choice.
All right.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, we had the introduction last time. We had a good work session where we talked about a few of these things, and things like the prior number of days meant if it failed, like right at the start of the winter, you're gonna have to remove it in the middle of the winter. So we stretched that out a little to make sure you always got a chance to take it out in the summer or spring. I think this is a pretty solid ordinance, as it mentions in it. The prior one was maybe 3 generations of technology ago, and it fit at the time. But since then, technology's gotten a lot better, options have gotten a lot better, and this aligns well to what's allowed in other cities. So it's a good opportunity to at least not be behind the other cities in what we allow our residents to do.
Councilmember Demmer, before you make that motion, Ms. Lensmeyer, do you want something with this read into the motion then, this public notice?
Mr. Mayor, yes, if you could just authorize summary publication of the ordinance, that would be great. 2255 is the one we'll do by summary.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
Councilmember Demmer?
So I guess, in planning case 21-34, move that the city council approve ordinance 2254 and 2255, amending the solar ordinance and definitions ordinance, and authorize summary publication of ordinance 2255.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Rayrauer. Any discussion?
Your Honor,
Councilmember Rayrauer?
I just want to thank the city staff for all of the research done on this, the time invested, and just want to comment that I am very, very excited about this ordinance, this change going through. Excited that we now have the opportunity to have this expanded solar capability in our city, and just pleased as punch.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll add to
Councilmember
that,
Basler?
you know, this also, I think our Sustainability Commission spent a lot of time on this ordinance, and so thanks to them. And then there's a community group that was also very engaged in solar. And so, you know, it takes a village, everybody comes together, and all of the team working together to get this ordinance.
Of course, we haven't been a village since 1958.
I know.
It's a whole
City.
Things have slowed down.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Now, under new business, item 9 is to consider resolution 21-98, providing for the sale of $9,995,000 in general obligation improvement and utility revenue bonds, Series 2021A. There's got to be a reason that's under 10 million, right?
Here's Mayor Council. Fran will describe that to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Yep, this evening, we're going to start our process to bond for our 2021 projects. This bonding is at $9,995,000, because if you go over $10,000, there's additional requirements that you have to go through, and it pretty much increases our fees double to bond.
If you go over 10 million.
Yeah, if you do over 10 million. So on a recommendation in Ellers, every year they tell us to try and keep our bonds below 10 million, so we did. So this bond covers our 21-1 and 21-2 street reconstruction projects. The estimated levy for these two street reconstruction projects is included in our 2022 proposed budget. So we have already accounted for the payment for these. The water fund is having the amount of $4,060,000. This includes $2,860,000 in those two street recons, and it also includes that $1.2 million that we just authorized in the consent agenda for the Foley overpass. What's a good thing is in the water fund this year, we retired a $4 million debt issue. So this year's $4 million debt issue will not significantly change the current cash flow for our water fund. So that's always a great consideration when we bond. We hope one falls off and one comes on, so we can keep our cash flows pretty consistent. We plan to come to council if this resolution is approved on November 2nd. That is the day the bonds will be sold. Nick will be here from Ellers to present the sale to council at that time.
And assuming that passes, hopefully Nick will have as good a news as last time, or close to it.
We're hoping.
All right, anybody have any questions of Fran? Councilmember Demmer?
I would like to move authorization of Resolution 21-98, providing for the sale of $9,995,000 in general obligation improvement and utility bonds, Series 2021A.
I'll second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Carlson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. And we are on to item 10, which would be another Fran thing, but we have to retain a new accounting audit firm because we can't have one for more than 6 consecutive years, although we went 7 last year because of COVID. So we're looking at hiring a new one. Looks like you had 7 proposals from accounting firms. 3 of the firms were selected by staff, and they are recommending Clifton Larson Allen LLP to perform the audit at a cost of $38,808. And then, let's see, and then it's an additional proposed fee of $3,120 if the city requires a single audit in 2021, which is a little less than we were paying the last company, so that's a good deal. Is there anything else you want to cover here, Fran?
No, just that we were really glad at what we got on our proposals. It's always, a guess, trying to figure out what people are going to propose in this new era. But the 38,808 from Clifton Larson Allen was the lowest bid. And we really did like their proposal. We liked what they presented to us, and we feel it'll be a really good working relationship. We've already scheduled an interim time for them to come in and talk to us, and we're looking forward to it.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions of Fran?
I do have a question.
Councilmember Demmer?
Given the federal programs, it seems like the single audit's really likely. So I guess I have 2 questions. When the fee bids went out, did you just add the single audit fee to all of them and pick based on that total price?
Yeah, the Councilmember Demmer, these RFPs always include a single audit. Audit firms know if there's $750,000 in federal grants, a city will require one. So we do ask them to tell us what they would charge. And then they do add in, if there is a second, if we have to have a single audit on one program, if a second program also needs to be audited, then they charge extra, and they do notify us of that too. So actually, this one was lower than all of them. Most of them came in at $5,000, and at $3,120, we were really pleased.
Okay. And then the second question is, I don't know this firm, any concerns or any evidence that they'll, be able to do the single audit given the complexities?
Yeah, in the proposals, we did ask for references, and this particular firm has the city of Bloomington and I believe the city of Edina. So 2 major cities that always have to have single audits. So we heard back from them very, very positive.
2 cities that are almost as good as Coon Rapids, so that's good.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, Edina's Edina's not really a major.
It's a step up for these guys.
All right. Councilmember
I have
Griscoviac?
a question. I really like the way MKKR, our previous auditors, they came into the work sessions and they really talked to us on really good level terms, and we really understood it well. Then they presented at the podium at the council meeting, and so our residents could really understand. Is all that going to be part of this new package where they come in and they sit down with us at a work session and really lay it out for us?
Yeah, Councilmember Grisgoliak, yes, that's something that we built into the RFP,
Okay.
telling them that this is our style, this is the way we like to present, asking them if they would be willing to have our recommendations come to council as opposed to just their own style. And this firm was very, very, very good at telling us they present exactly what we want to hear.
Excellent. And then you mentioned references for those other cities. I'm sure you would give a good reference for MKKR. I think they did an outstanding job. I've only been here for 4 years, and I thought they did a great job.
Yeah, and on that too, Bill Lauer was very sad to see us go.
I bet. Nice guy.
Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Demmer?
Your Honor, I move to recommend authorization to use CLA to perform the city's audit of 2021 and the renewal through 2026.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. I suppose, Mr. Brody, I'm violating some big Roberts rules by jumping the gun on this, or I'm just anticipating.
Yeah, you're very good at that.
All right, item 11 is to consider resolution 21-93, amending our stormwater drainage fund. Do you want me to just read the highlights here?
Yeah, that's
Okay. We're looking to do a budget amendment to the Stormwater Drainage Fund 640, allocating an additional $10,000 within capital machinery and equipment, Code 6544, for the replacement of Public Works Unit 75 storm utility truck. The city's approved 2021 budget included $84,167 for the replacement of this vehicle. Due to industry-wide shortages and delays in availability, the current state contract was just approved last month. The total cost of a new truck has increased by $10,000. Funds are available in the fund balance of the Stormwater Drainage Fund to cover the additional cost. So they went up by 10 grand, but maybe we'll get one eventually.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
Move adoption of resolution number 21-93, amending the 2021 Stormwater Drainage Fund budget.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Rayrauer. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 12 is to consider resolution 21-94, amending the capital equipment fund budget, very similar to the last one. We're looking to a budget amendment to the capital equipment fund 788, allocating an additional $19,146 within capital machinery and equipment, Code 6544, for the replacement of Public Works Unit 139, a one-ton pickup with air compressor. The city's approved 2021 budget included $50,657 for the replacement of this vehicle. Due to industry-wide shortages and supply chain manufacturing challenges caused by COVID-19, orders for 2021 vehicles closed very early this year. Staff was unable to place an order until September 2nd, at which time only 2022 models were offered. Based on current availability, we're looking to upgrade the vehicle from a two-wheel drive model to a four-wheel drive model. The cost of the new truck has increased by $19,146 for a total cost of $69,803. Funds are available in the fund balance of the Capital Equipment Fund to cover the additional cost. And might I just say, yikes. So, any questions?
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer.
Mr. Himmer described this situation to us at the last work session, and I mean, it's not like they're out there shopping for luxury trucks. This is the one they could get. So I would move adoption of resolution number 21-94, amending the 2021 Capital Equipment Fund budget.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Carlson. Was just a delay there. Any
Well, it's
discussion?
hard to second a $20,000 increase on a pickup truck.
Just going up one model
It
here.
hurts.
Of course, we did go to four-wheel drive, though.
Yeah. Which is expensive four-wheel drive.
Give that one an extra year.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Carlson?
I just had a question for Mr. Stemwindle. So these two vehicles that we're buying the new vehicle, can we get anything back from those old vehicles then? Or would we work them into the pool, or do we sell them to another city, maybe
Yep.
Edina?
I got a feeling they're not buying a $70,000 truck.
Councilmember Carlson, Mayor and Council, yes, we do kind of jockey vehicles within our fleet if possible. Typically, though, when we recommend a vehicle be replaced, it's at really getting to the end of its useful life. We do try to stretch them out as far as we practically can. I mean, we're not running them to the ground, so to speak, but we're running to the point where the maintenance on them has become so cumbersome that they're not worth having anymore. We do sell them at auction, so it'll fetch a price, usually pretty good price in the last year or two because of the competitiveness in the automobile market. So we do anticipate some return from that, but certainly it's not going to cover the additional $19,000. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Item 13 is to consider resolution 21-95, adopting the preliminary 2022 tax levy. And we could just do this with a motion and be right through it, but it would be, you would have no idea how much work has gone into this. Staff has been working on this since April. We've had several workshops discussing the budget amount and the tax levy. And Mr. Stemwindle or Fran, I don't know, somebody want to just kind of hit the highlights of this, or do you want me to read this description here?
Yeah, Fran, if you just want to kind of summarize the action they're taking tonight and then kind of where the plan goes from
Sure.
here.
Mr. Mayor, Council, tonight we're adopting the preliminary budget. We're asking for $30,999,539 on our levy. It's a 4.46% increase over our 2021 adopted levy. And this levy can be reduced until we go to final certification in December of 2021. It cannot be increased, though. So all we can do is, if something happens, reduce it if we deem necessary. So that's pretty much the highlights of it. After all of the workshops we've had, I think we've come up with a pretty good plan for 2022.
And and I always forget the name of the cards. Are the next cards that come out truth and taxation or something?
Correct, Mayor and Council. The purpose of setting the preliminary levy is so that information can be included in the county's truth and taxation notice, which people will receive, property owners will receive in November. They'll have all the taxing jurisdictions on there with their proposed levies, and also the date of their truth and taxation hearing, which in most cases occurs in early December. At that point, the final levy is adopted and the 2022 budget would be adopted. So this is really more about transparency and communication to property tax owners than, anything that's going to formally hold or tie our hands at this point, other than we can't go above that 4.46% levy increase.
Okay, excellent. Fran?
I'd just like to add that we will be publishing this online, and we will have a budget highlights page that is 4 pages long, which is a more simplified portion of our budget, so residents can really get the gist of what's in that larger 300 and some odd page budget that will be published also. And it'll be in the same location under the finance section of our webpage.
Excellent.
Your Honor.
Councilmember Demmer?
So just to preempt it for the truth and taxation cards that get sent out, my annual reminder of how this works, we are increasing our levy by up to 4.46%, which means if you are paying $500 in city taxes, then next year you'll be paying $522 in city taxes. So that's where the 4.46% goes. However, that's only one of many, many things that changes your property tax rate, including the school board, or the school district, the county, and then your house valuation. So you may find that you end up with your taxes going up by 10%. That's not us. We are doing 4.46%. It may be that your house value went way up compared to some of the other values in the city. And so just a reminder, that 4.46% is $20 on every $500 of tax you're paying. We did our absolute best to keep that number as low as possible, remembering that last year we kept it at under 1% because we had no idea what COVID was going to do. But we have hired police officers a couple years in a row, and we've increased pay for police and fire.
All staff.
All staff, but we actually did a bonus additional on police because we were worried we weren't competitive. And so the largest single budget item that causes the levy to increase is the pay of the personnel, and it is very, very hard to increase headcount for public safety without increasing the levy by a couple percent. So it was a big challenge for the staff to get to this point. And to be fair, some federal programs helped us, which then we're going to end up paying for that single audit, but that's only a couple $1,000s. So anyway, just a reminder of how this process works. It's a long, arduous process, and you can't get everything, but I think this was a good balance between a realistic, we needed to increase it to hire those additional staff, versus, trying not to have a giant increase in one given year.
Very good. I would suggest there's probably no one house in here that'll go up exactly 4.46%, yeah. All right, any other discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember
I would just
Griscoviac?
like to add on to Councilmember Demmer's comments there. I think it's a responsible budget. I mean, it came in a little bit higher in the initial phases of this. We did a lot of work to kind of trim it down a little bit, but in the end, with the added police and fire, we are still making major investments into infrastructure and capital equipment and things like that. So it's a lot of work just to even keep it at a 4.46%. And I think next year, you just heard about 2 trucks costing more than anticipated, and inflation is in the news. We've got our work cut out again next year for these budgets. So just want to add that.
Okay. Councilmember Demmer, do you have something to say on this?
I will move to
All
adopt
right.
resolution number 21-95, establishing the preliminary tax levy for the city of Coon Rapids.
Second.
Motion by Demmer, second by Griscoviac. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. We are up to the open mic public comment portion of the meeting. Is anybody here to address council for open mic? Nobody here for open mic? All right. And then we are up to reports from the last open mic. Item 14, so during the open mic portion of the meeting, it was suggested that the city council reconsider the site plan approval recently granted to Sherman Associates for phases 3 and 4 of the Riverdale Transit Orient Development Project. There were some concerns that the developer misrepresented the parking demands for phases 1 and 2 and noted that during recent site visits, he had found 50 to 100 cars parked in the North Star commuter rail lot adjacent to the apartments. He felt that the parking demands were greater than what was presented to the city and that the future project phases will only exacerbate the situation. Staff reached out to the developer to understand what they know about the parking situation. There may not be an overall lack of parking, but it is possible that some tenants are avoiding the extra charges for underground parking. If that is the case, staff will remind the developer of the importance of managing tenant parking on site. During the site plan review process, staff analyzed parking demands for all 4 project phases and concluded that there was support for granting the approvals, including design flexibility for parking at a slightly lesser amount than what was required. The Riverdale Transit-Oriented Development Standards require parking at 1.5 spaces per unit, including 1 underground space. And then we've got a summary of the parking required and what was ultimately built. The city approved design flexibility for each of the phases to accommodate parking at less than the required ratios. The rationale for the approval was the proximity to transit options and pedestrian connections to nearby Riverdale Village. Further updates will be provided and available after conversations with the developer. With regard to rescinding an approval, staff is unaware of any precedent where the city has taken such an action. Approvals can expire if a project doesn't proceed, but the city initiating something before expiration would be unusual and likely trigger litigation. So staff does not believe there is a basis to pursue such action, and this report is provided for informational purposes only, and a copy will be provided to Mr. Schwartz. And that is our full agenda this evening, and we are up to other business. Let somebody else start. Somebody have something? Chief Wise.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight is the first council meeting after 9/11 event. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. First off, it was a great event. We made a commitment in this town to never forget. Every 10 years, we've had a special event at the high school. A lot of people did a lot of work to make this come together, police, fire, emergency medical services, military, but I want to highlight one person in particular. That would be our officer, Brian Plotz.
Very classy individual.
He is a very classy individual indeed. And I just want to say, he's a Coon Rapids kid, graduated from Coon Rapids High School, still lives in town. His passion to build our community is limitless. And it was his passion that brought this together with help from others. But I'm just telling you, he's the fuel that makes that engine work. And I really just want to highlight that to the community. And I personally thanked Officer Brian Plotz vigorously. So
Everybody did a great job that day. And you can see when it started, Officer Plotz was feeling the tension of all of the pressure of organizing, but the event was just wonderful. I mean, from the Lifelink helicopter going over at the beginning to the Vietnam era Huey going over to the flyover at the end with the P-51s. I was standing with Congressman Phillips, and he was just starting to say goodbye, and I went, oh no, just wait, because they hadn't done the volley yet of 60 mortar rounds or whatever that was. It was really nice. It was really well attended. And then that kicked off a parade, not parade, a procession of emergency vehicles down to Fire Station 1 for a very nice short memorial at the permanent memorial. And then sort of as a little a booster, then they all drove up to Lowe's, reformed up, and then made an emergency vehicle pass with the lights on over the bridge both ways, and everybody on the bridge was just cheering, and the horns were honking, and because even though we had the great 9/11 event at the high school, we still have the commitment from sunrise to sunset out on the bridge with to remember too. So, excellent day. Kudos to Brian Platts. Kudos to all of our public safety, and thank you.
Thanks. Your Honor.
Councilmember Johnson?
I just want to dovetail on that, and I thank you, Chief Wise, for mentioning Officer Platts and all the work that he put into the event that we had, and to the fire department as well for the work that they do annually in remembrance of 9/11 on the bridge. One other thing that I'd like to do is express my appreciation and recognition to the North Star Lions as well for the work that they did, manning the concession stand and supporting the softball tournament that we had out at Sand Creek Park, which was, I have to say, because I was there for various parts of it, remarkable. There were 110 to 120 teams. They played 3 days straight, from basically 6 o'clock in the morning till midnight almost, all of those days. But what I'd like to do is really recognize Diane Busta with the North Star Lions, who was also there from 5 o'clock in the morning to midnight on most nights. Retired council member Steve Wells, who was there for significant parts of it, and all the other North Star Lions who were there. If you've never had an opportunity to get out there during that event, I think it would be well worth your time. It was exciting. All the people that were there were just wonderful to be around. And I want to thank Twin City Gateway as well for helping the city coordinate that. And it's an event that I'd like the city to keep. It was really, really impressive the way it came off. So thank you.
If you're going to mention names, you also have to mention John Leggett.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
John Leggett,
that's
too.
the other guy that's organizing all the food. And
Yep, John was there too.
yeah. But I would encourage everyone, it's not publicized. In fact, you really had to kind of look for it. The opening ceremony turned out to be 6:30 p.m. Friday, and it was just so powerful. They had all the infield baselines lined up with all the players in the military, and then they had the infield grass line lined up with all veterans, and just a very nice opening ceremony. And then Saturday, our own Miss Coon Rapids, who is also Army National Guard, was there in uniform and sang the national anthem to kick off the championship game. So it was a great event.
I mean,
Great weekend.
it's the best of our country that shows up there and the best of our city that shows up there to help them. So, I mean, if the public wants to have something just to get out to and spend time with just wonderful people, that's an event that should be on the list every year.
Absolutely. All right. Any other business to come before council? So we've been kind of picking on Wade for all of our motions tonight, but that's because you're not going to be making any more motions, are you?
Yeah, so I have some bittersweet news. Very excited to be moving into a new house. Our family was able to find a house to move into that's more appropriate than our starter home. We've been in our starter home for 20 years, so we got a good start. For people who don't know, it was my grandma's house, and so Demers have been in that house in the Woodcrest neighborhood for almost 70 years. So it's, of course, very difficult to leave the beloved Woodcrest neighborhood, which, over those 20 years, the improvements that have been made and the things that have happened in that neighborhood, hopefully coincidentally from having a rep there. But that the place we're moving, while it's in Coon Rapids, because you can't leave the best city in Minnesota, but it is not in Ward 3, which according to the bylaws of the council mean that I can no longer be the Ward 3 representative.
Quitter.
I know. So assuming that we do end up moving, because you never know, you could end up with 0, 1, or 2 houses by the time all the bank stuff happens. But it looks pretty set in stone that we're going to be able to get to the new house and sell the old house. That would make this my last council meeting, and that's definitely hard because it's been such a wonderful opportunity. You know, I learned so much about how government works from actually being in it. Certainly encourage everyone out there to find ways to be civically involved. You know, when you actually get into a piece of it, you understand so much more about why it's the way it is and what you can do to make it better and how many people are working crazy hours to hold stuff together. I'd like to think I did my best to represent the people of Ward 3 and the city of Coon Rapids. And it's hard to leave early. I've done almost 7 years, so I would have had 1 more year left. I did not plan on running again because that always felt like it could be somebody else's turn. I guess it's someone else's turn a little sooner. But I definitely have to give some public thank yous. You know, obviously the council, this is a rare council. This is something I was told when I joined, that we can disagree and we can still go to happy hour, right? That it's not the political environment that you see in the newspaper, and it hasn't been. And obviously thank you to prior council members as well that taught me and that I learned right alongside. The staff, you know, always there to answer the questions. You have just decades of professional knowledge on how to run a government. You know, we are the oversight board. They are the people who make the things happen. And you never want to perfectly agree with your oversight board, but you sure give us the right information to help us make the right decisions on what we think is right. And you even put up with us pretending like we know how to do your jobs. You know, as an engineer, the engineers in the back especially know. Obviously, the residents of Coon Rapids, you know, again, what a humbling experience to represent people. They trusted me, and then they didn't take it back. They trusted me a second time. So I hope people feel like they were well represented, and of course my family, who actually came to a city council meeting after you know, years of not having me on Tuesdays to be at home, and I know they did a lot to take care of each other while I wasn't there, and they came to a bunch of meetings in the park and played on all the different playgrounds and ate some of the ice cream, so it wasn't all bad, but obviously just did so much to support me over the years. And so again, thank you to absolutely everyone, and I'm terribly sorry not to finish my term, but I will do my best to stay involved in the city in a non-elected capacity, and hopefully other people will also look for different commissions and things to join if you don't feel like running for office is your cup of tea as you get civically involved. So again, thank you to everybody.
Councilmember Demmer, you don't actually get to put this up other than like in your garage or maybe your driveway, probably the driveway. But thank you for all of your time on the council. And there's so many questions that all of a sudden we're going, all right, who's going to ask this one now? Who's going to cover this from now on? So just thank you for your service. And then I think that before we adjourn, I think or maybe after we adjourn, we should get a picture of you and your family with this out in front of the dais, but maybe after.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, here,
And then so,
I'm not sure I'm
Mr.
taking
Mayor.
that back. Councilmember Geisler?
I think the other big thing, and I don't know if you're going to talk about it or Matt, so we need somebody from Ward 3.
No, we don't. We don't have a vacancy yet. He's still here.
Oh, that's true.
We'll talk about this next time.
When we declare it. So start thinking. You know, but, you know, we will need to fill that chair eventually.
Yeah.
So.
It's not that hard, even I can do it.
Yeah, but after Wade's not sitting in it, he's
True.
still there.
True. But we can get people to start to think about how they can participate in the city.
Okay, well,
Well, I guess if there's
with
nothing
that.
else, I would.
Councilmember Demmer.
I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Demmer, second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
That was co-term.